I spent over $20,000 countless hours, and so much of my heart only to be shown the door like an unwanted guest. After my husband Eli passed away, I found myself in a place I never imagined. Grief was something so deep, it felt like it was pulling me under. And that's when my daughter Sarah reached out. She had twins, only toddlers at the time, and a husband who worked unpredictable hours. I saw the chaos in her eyes, the weariness I knew too well. So I did what any mother would do. I moved in with them. I thought it would only be for a few months, just long enough to help her find her footing, to give her some space to breathe. I was happy to be needed at first. It felt right. It felt like I was doing something good, something important. I woke up early every morning, packing school lunches for the twins, doing laundry, helping around the house. There was always something that needed attention, and I was there. It wasn't just about the practical things, though. It was about emotional support, too. I was there to listen when Sarah needed to talk, to hold her hand when she felt overwhelmed. She didn't have to say much. I could see the exhaustion in her face, the sadness behind her smile. I didn't mind. It was my role as a mother, as a grandmother. I told myself that's what family does, help when the other needs it most. It was a small sacrifice on my part, really. I'd raised my own family, and now it was my turn to give back. There were the little things, too. I chipped in financially when their paychecks fell short. Groceries, daycare deposits, utility bills, all those expenses that seemed to add up so quickly. I never hesitated. I just made sure everything was covered. It wasn't a big deal. I was just doing my part. For a while, I felt like I was in the right place doing the right thing. I was part of the rhythm of their household. There was a sense of belonging, a feeling that I was still needed, still valued. And I told myself that's what mattered, the comfort of being close to my daughter, to my grandchildren, the purpose that came with being there for them every single day. But soon I started to feel something shift, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. The first few months went by in a blur of activity. The twins grew, their personalities began to shine through, and Sarah, despite her exhaustion, seemed to be managing a bit better. I still woke up early, cooked breakfast, did the laundry, ran errands. It was the kind of routine that settled in like a warm blanket, comforting, predictable, necessary. I never minded. I was where I needed to be. But somewhere along the way, things started to change. Little things at first that I tried to ignore. Small shifts that I brushed off as part of life, part of the ebb and flow of living together. The gratitude once so freely given became less frequent. It wasn't that Sarah ever said anything outright, but I could feel the distance growing between us. It wasn't like before. Before she would thank me every time I helped. A quick smile, a thanks, Mom, or a squeeze of my hand. It was small, but it was enough. It made me feel seen, appreciated. But then that stopped. The little moments of thanks began to fade, replaced by a quiet assumption that I'd just always be there doing what needed to be done. Sarah stopped asking me to join them for family dinners. At first, I told myself it was just easier to have a quiet meal in my room, away from the chaos. The twins were often fussy, and it was hard to keep up with the noise of the house. But soon it became clear that it wasn't just about the noise, it was about me not being part of the family's rhythm anymore. I'd catch Sarah and her husband Niles sharing looks when dinner was being served, and I would instinctively stay out of their way. It wasn't spoken, but it felt like a sign, like an unspoken rule, that I didn't belong at their table anymore. One night, I decided to join them. I cooked the meal as usual, even though I was tired, even though I knew I wasn't exactly invited. But I thought maybe if I just sat at the table, it would be like it used to be. Maybe they'd remember that I was still part of the family. So I set the table, helped with the drinks, and sat down, hoping that the usual warmth would fill the room again. But it didn't. It was like I wasn't even there. The conversation was distant, fragmented, like a few disconnected threads. Sarah barely looked up from her plate. The twins ate quietly, their eyes glued to their tablets, a new thing Sarah had started letting them do to keep them occupied. Niles was busy with his phone, and I was just there. I could feel it the way the room felt, like it had shifted, like I was no longer a part of the rhythm of the house. I wasn't a guest, not anymore. But I also wasn't family anymore, not in the way I had hoped. My presence was no longer welcomed with open arms. It was tolerated at best. The kids, too, began to drift further away. I didn't notice at first, but slowly it became evident. They started calling Betty Niles's mother, the other grandma, a title that stung every time I heard it. Betty was a kind woman, but she lived across town and hardly visited. Still, her title was somehow more official than mine. It wasn't just a nickname. It was a clear signal that I was being replaced. When I heard them say it, I tried to laugh it off. It hurt, but I told myself, it's just a phase. Kids get confused. They'll come around. But the more I heard them say it, the more I realized that something deeper was happening. I wasn't the other grandma. I was becoming the invisible one. I started to feel like I was slowly fading out of their lives, like I didn't matter anymore. I began to notice it everywhere, things I hadn't seen before. In the mornings when I would make coffee, the mugs I liked to use, my favorites, were now packed away in the back of the cabinet, buried behind others. They'd been there for years, but somehow they were being pushed aside. I used to leave little notes in the twins' lunchboxes, funny little drawings, or encouraging words. But now those notes seemed pointless. They barely even acknowledged them anymore. The once vibrant, lively household felt quieter, more distant. It wasn't the same. It wasn't just the little things either. I had taken on the role of caregiver, not only in terms of physical tasks, but emotional support too. I had been the listening ear when Sarah had bad days, the one who gave her a moment of respite when she needed it. But as time went on, I felt like that, too, was no longer needed. Her sighs became more dismissive. Her frustrations with the kids, with Niles, all of it, was often turned inward, no longer shared with me. One night I walked into the living room to find Sarah and Niles sitting on the couch, talking about the future. The house, the kids, their plans. I joined them as I always had, but when I opened my mouth to offer my thoughts, it was like my voice was lost in the air. Sarah didn't meet my eyes. Niles barely nodded. There was a moment where I realized deep down that I was no longer part of the conversations that shaped their lives. It was subtle at first, but one night when I was folding laundry in the corner of the room, Sarah came into the laundry room with her phone in hand. I could tell something was coming before she even spoke. "Mom," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Niles's parents are moving in." I blinked. "They're visiting?" I asked, hopeful, though I knew deep down the answer wouldn't be what I wanted. "No," Sarah replied, her voice flat. "Moving in. For good. We need the space." I couldn't help it. I laughed. It was absurd. It felt like something out of a bad sitcom. But Sarah's face remained unchanged. She wasn't joking. She meant it. The words hit me like a blow to the chest. It felt like a punch. Like something I hadn't prepared for, even though deep down I knew this moment had been coming. "You'll need to leave by the end of the month," she added. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. The home I had helped build, the space I had filled with memories of my late husband and my children, it was suddenly no longer mine. It was like everything I had done, everything I had sacrificed, meant nothing. I walked away slowly, my heart sinking. As I passed the family photo hanging on the wall, I glanced up expecting to see our picture still there, but my frame was missing. The place where I used to stand with Eli with the twins was now empty. The room felt colder, like something precious had been taken away. That was the moment it all clicked, the realization that I had become an outsider in my own home. The sacrifices, the years of love and care had been taken for granted, and now I was the one who was being asked to leave. But this wasn't just about a room or a meal, or even the kids calling someone else grandma. It was about something deeper. It was about being replaced, being forgotten, and it was about the harsh truth that no matter how much you give, there comes a time when you realize you can't keep giving if no one is willing to see you anymore. I remember that night clearly. The way Sarah walked into the laundry room holding her phone like it was some sort of shield. The look in her eyes was different. There was no warmth, no connection, just a coldness that made my heart drop. She hadn't even looked up when she spoke to me. "Mom," she said, her voice flat. "Niles's parents are moving in." I froze, the sound of the words ringing in my ears. "They're visiting?" I asked almost desperately, still holding on to some hope, a small part of me wanting to believe that this was just another temporary thing, like when Niles's parents came over for the holidays. "No," Sarah replied, her eyes avoiding mine. "Moving in. For good. We need the space." The words hit me like a slap in the face. I don't know what I expected, but it certainly wasn't that. I stood there holding the sock I had been folding, staring at her. A laugh escaped my lips, but it was hollow, forced, uncomfortable. I couldn't help it. It felt so absurd. It wasn't like she was announcing that a piece of furniture was being moved in. It was something far deeper. This was the loss of my place in the only home I'd known for years, the home I'd helped build both physically and emotionally. But Sarah didn't laugh with me. Her face was stiff serious. There was no trace of humor in her expression. It was final, and that finality crashed down on me with a weight I wasn't prepared for. "You'll need to leave by the end of the month," Sarah added, her voice barely more than a whisper, but the words were sharp, cutting through the air between us. It felt like a dagger lodged deep into my chest, and I couldn't breathe for a moment. The room, once so familiar, suddenly seemed so cold, foreign even. I had spent so much time in that house, more than I could count. My husband Eli and I had raised our family there. Our laughter, our arguments, our tears, everything had happened in that home. I had spent years watching my daughter grow, watching her family grow. I had cared for the twins, watched them take their first steps, heard their first words. I'd helped put food on the table when their bills didn't quite stretch far enough, and I'd worked late into the night folding laundry and cleaning up after long days. I had filled that space with life, with love, with the little things that come with being a family. And now it was all slipping away. In one sentence, Sarah had turned my world upside down, and I was left standing there holding on to the remnants of a place that had been my home. My home. I don't think she realized how much the words stung. She was focused on her own stress, on the chaos of life, and I understood that. But in that moment, I felt completely invisible to her. It wasn't about the physical space. It was about everything that had been taken away. The sense of belonging, the connection, the love we had shared, it was all suddenly gone, as if it had never existed. I tried to keep my composure, but I couldn't help it. My throat tightened and I felt the sting of tears behind my eyes. I couldn't even look at Sarah. It was too much. She was my daughter, the little girl I had raised, and now it felt like I was being cast aside, like I was just something they no longer needed. I had given so much of myself to them, and yet in that moment, I realized just how little I mattered in their lives anymore. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice trembling, but I already knew the answer. There was no softness in her tone. There was no room for negotiation. She had made up her mind, and there was nothing I could say to change it. I felt like a guest in my own home, a guest who had outstayed her welcome. I walked away from her that night without saying much more. The words hung heavy in the air, unspoken. What could I say? What could I do? I didn't belong there anymore. I wasn't a part of their life the way I had thought. My presence, once cherished, was now nothing more than an inconvenience. The next morning I woke up with a feeling of dread in the pit of my stomach. It was the kind of feeling you get when you know something terrible is coming, but you can't quite prepare for it. I looked around the room, my room, and I couldn't help but feel the weight of every memory that filled it. The quilt on the bed, the bookshelf filled with books I'd collected over the years, the lamp on the dresser, all of it was mine, yet none of it felt like it belonged to me anymore. It felt like I was living in someone else's world. The thought of packing up my things, of leaving everything behind, made my chest tighten. I had spent so many years making this house feel like a home. I had worked so hard, given so much, and now it was all slipping away. It wasn't just the walls, the furniture, the objects in the house that I would miss. It was the feeling of belonging, of being needed, of being seen, and I wasn't ready to let that go. But Sarah's words echoed in my mind. I had to leave. I had to accept that things had changed, that I was no longer a part of their world the way I once had been. In the days that followed, the house began to feel emptier. The space that had once been filled with laughter and activity now felt hollow. Every time I walked through the hallway, I felt the absence of something I couldn't quite name. The boys who used to rush to me for bedtime stories now barely glanced in my direction. Sarah no longer called me into the kitchen to help with dinner, and I found myself wandering around, unsure of where to be. The silence was deafening, and it made the house feel more like a hotel than a home. One afternoon, Sarah came into my room, a plastic smile on her face. "Hey, do you mind starting to pack up some of your non-essentials?" she asked, her voice flat, like she was asking a stranger to pack their bags. "We need to start making room for the in-laws. Non-essentials." My heart sank at the word. Everything in my room was mine. Every book, every photograph, every piece of furniture. But now it was all just non-essentials, just things to be packed away. I nodded, a lump forming in my throat, but I didn't say anything. What could I say? She had made her decision. Later that day, I overheard Sarah and Niles in the living room talking about their plans for the space. They were discussing where the in-laws would sleep, how to rearrange the rooms to accommodate them. They didn't mention me. I wasn't part of the conversation anymore. I stood there frozen, listening to the sound of my own heart breaking. It wasn't just the physical space they were rearranging. It was my place in their lives. And it was slipping away, slowly, quietly. That evening, as I sat alone in my room, I tried to hold back the tears. I thought about everything I had given, everything I had done. I thought about the years of sacrifice, the love, the support, and I realized that it wasn't enough. I wasn't just being asked to leave the house. I was being asked to leave their lives too. The realization hit me hard. I wasn't needed anymore, and in that moment, I had to face a painful truth. No matter how much you give, no matter how much you love, there comes a time when you realize that you can't keep giving if no one is willing to see you anymore. The days after Sarah's announcement felt like a blur, each one blending into the next, as I struggled to come to terms with the new reality. The house, which had once felt like a home, was now just a space I was no longer welcome in. I moved through the motions, packing up the small bits of my life, sorting through years of memories, trying to ignore the bitter taste in my mouth. But despite my best efforts, one thought kept creeping back into my mind, refusing to let go. How much had I really given? The idea gnawed at me, and the more I thought about it, the more it consumed me. I wasn't just leaving a house. I was leaving years of emotional and financial contributions, and in doing so, I realized something I had long avoided. I had poured everything into that house, everything I could afford, everything I had, to give, all the while thinking it was just what family did. But now, as I packed away my belongings, I couldn't help but wonder how much of that had been truly appreciated, how much of it had been taken for granted. It wasn't just about the small things, the groceries, the utilities, the babysitting, or the laundry. It wasn't just about the food I cooked or the chores I did. It was about something deeper, something I hadn't fully acknowledged until now, the financial support I had given. I knew the numbers were high. I'd never kept track of every penny I spent, but I had kept a vague sense of what I had contributed. But now, sitting in my empty room, I needed to see it all laid out in front of me. So I did. What any organized person would do, I created a spreadsheet. I wasn't sure what I expected, but I had to know. I needed to see it in black and white. The numbers hit me harder than I thought they would. There on the screen were all the groceries I'd bought, hundreds of dollars spent, just to make sure they had enough to eat. The utility bills I paid when the family couldn't quite make ends meet. The daycare deposits I had covered, the unexpected costs that came up when things got tight. Every little expense, every big expense, Every dollar I had spent to keep the household running was there, and it added up, over $20,000 in total. As I stared at the numbers, something cold and unfamiliar settled in the pit of my stomach. I had given so much, and yet it had never been enough. I didn't do it for the recognition, of course. I had never expected a parade or a trophy for helping my family. But there was a difference between giving out of love and giving out of obligation, and somewhere along the way, that line had blurred. The realization came slowly, but once it sank in, I couldn't shake it. All the time I had spent, all the care I had given, all the money I had poured into the household, it was as if it had all been erased. No one had asked me to track it. No one had said thank you or acknowledged the sacrifice I had made. In fact, the more I thought about it, the more I realized how much of it had been taken for granted. I had become a silent contributor, a background presence that no one truly saw. And now, as I was being asked to leave, I couldn't help but wonder, had it all been worth it? I felt the sting of that thought more sharply than anything else. I had always believed that love was measured by the care you give, the time you spend, the sacrifices you make for the ones you love. But now I was being told that all of those things, my love, my support, my contributions, meant nothing. The cold, hard truth was clear. My worth in that household had been measured in dollars and cents. I sat there for hours, staring at the spreadsheet, unable to look away from the total at the bottom of the page. Over $20,000. That wasn't a small sum. It was a significant amount of money, especially for someone on a fixed income like mine. It wasn't just about the money, though. It was about what that money represented. It represented the countless hours I had spent cooking, cleaning, running errands, picking up the slack when things got tough. It represented the sleepless nights I had spent worrying about their bills, the times I had put my own life on hold to take care of them. It represented the small sacrifices I had made every single day, believing that it was all part of being family. But now it seemed like all of that was meaningless. The house was no longer mine. Sarah's words echoed in my mind. We need the space. You'll need to leave by the end of the month. It wasn't just the physical space she was talking about. It was my place in their lives, my place in the family. I had been replaced, and all the money I had spent, all the time I had invested it, had never mattered. I wasn't angry, at least not in the way I thought I would be. There was no rage, no outbursts of emotion. But there was a quiet sadness, a deep ache in my chest. How could I have given so much, and yet in the end still been so easily cast aside? I closed my laptop, slowly pushing the spreadsheet aside, as if that would make the numbers disappear. But they didn't. The realization was there, solid and unmovable, like a weight that had settled on my shoulders. I wasn't just being asked to leave a house. I was being asked to leave my own worth behind. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had no value. I had spent so much of my life taking care of others, making sure that everything ran smoothly, and now in the blink of an eye, it had all been forgotten. I was no longer seen. I was no longer needed. As I sat there trying to make sense of it all, I realized something else. I had been measuring my worth in the wrong way. I had believed that love and care were enough, but somewhere along the way, I had let myself become invisible, and that had made me feel less than I was. It wasn't about the money, the time, or the sacrifices. It was about respect, about being valued, and about remembering that I mattered too. In the end, the cold reality I had been avoiding was impossible to ignore. The number on the spreadsheet didn't define me. It never had. What I gave, what I had done, was important, but it wasn't what made me who I was. I would have to remind myself of that as I walked away from this house, from this chapter of my life. I had given so much, and I would carry that with me. But it was time to remember who I was outside of all that I had done for others. It was time to start living for myself, and as much as it hurt, I knew that was the only way forward. The days after I'd tallied up the numbers, after I'd spent what felt like hours, staring at the spreadsheet, were a blur. The weight of it all settled heavily on my shoulders, pressing down on my chest. I hadn't expected this. I hadn't expected it to hurt so much. But there I was, sitting in a room that once felt like mine, surrounded by all the little things that had made it feel like home. The quilt on my bed, the lamp on the dresser, the books on the shelf, they had all been a part of my life, a part of this family's life for so long. Each item felt like a small piece of the sacrifices I'd made over the years. Each one had a memory tied to it, late-night talks with Sarah, the warmth of Eli's presence, the laughter of the twins as they grew up. And now each object felt like a reminder of what I was losing. I had been packing slowly, almost methodically, as if I could delay the inevitable. But with each item I folded, with each piece of my life that I put into boxes, I felt the distance between me and this house growing. It wasn't just the physical space that was changing, it was the emotional space too. I wasn't just leaving a house, I was leaving a life, a family that had once needed me, that had once relied on me. Now I was being shown the door. The hardest part wasn't the packing itself, it was the realization that no matter how much I had given it, didn't matter anymore. I had spent years taking care of them, filling in the gaps, trying to make their lives easier. But now I was being asked to leave as though I had been nothing more than a temporary fixture. The sacrifices, the love, the care, it all seemed so insignificant in the end. I looked around one last time before I closed the door behind me. The house felt empty, colder somehow, as if the warmth had been drained out of it. As I stood there staring at the familiar hallway, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking away from more than just four walls. I was walking away from the last remnants of my life with them. I wasn't just leaving a house, I was leaving a part of myself. The next morning I woke up to the sound of silence. The house was still and quiet, and for a moment I almost wished I was back in my room, surrounded by the familiarity of the space I had known for so long. But that was no longer my reality. My things were packed, and the house no longer felt like it belonged to me. It wasn't my home anymore, and it wasn't going to be. I had spent the previous evening looking for an apartment somewhere small and quiet where I could start over. It wasn't much, but it would be mine. A space that was entirely my own, a place where I could find peace again. I didn't need much, just enough to create a life for myself, but it came with a bitter taste in my mouth. The thought of starting over, of finding a new home, should have been exciting, but instead it felt like the final nail in the coffin. I wasn't just moving into a new space, I was moving away from everything I had known. I took the bus to the apartment the next day, feeling the weight of the decision in every step I took. The building was small, tucked away in a quiet neighborhood far from the hustle and bustle of the family I had left behind. The apartment was simple, one bedroom, a small kitchen, a bathroom. It wasn't much, but it would be enough. I could already imagine myself there, sitting by the window with a cup of tea, reading a book, or just staring out at the world beyond. As I walked into the apartment, the scent of fresh paint filled the air. It was clean, empty, nothing like the house I had spent years in. I ran my fingers along the edge of the countertop, feeling the smooth surface, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I had control over this space, this small corner of the world. But even as I stood there trying to take in the newness of it, a part of me couldn't help but feel the weight of abandonment. I had left the house I had helped build, the place where I had poured so much of myself, and now I was here starting over. It wasn't a fresh start, the way people talked about it. It didn't feel like the beginning of a new chapter. It felt like a retreat, like I had been forced into a corner and had no other choice but to find somewhere to hide. The bitterness of it all lingered, and I had to push it away, force myself to focus on the positives, the quiet, the solitude, the peace. This was my chance to find myself again, to rediscover who I was outside of my role as caretaker, as the one who gave and gave without asking for anything in return. It wasn't easy. It wasn't the life I had imagined for myself. But it was mine now. In the days that followed, I settled in. The apartment began to feel like home, albeit a new kind of home, one that didn't have the same warmth or memories of the life I had left behind. I arranged my belongings, unpacked my clothes, and made space for the things I needed. But it was different. This time I wasn't just doing it for someone else. I wasn't making a home for anyone but myself. It wasn't easy. The loneliness crept in at times, especially at night when the silence in the apartment was overwhelming. I missed the noise of the house, the sound of the twins laughing, the hum of the kitchen, the warmth of being needed. But in the stillness I began to hear something else, a voice inside of me that I hadn't heard in years. It was a voice I had buried under layers of responsibility and sacrifice. It was my own voice, reminding me that I had value, that I was more than just the sum of my sacrifices. Slowly, I began to fill the space with my own presence, not the presence of someone who is always giving, always serving, always invisible. I began to take up space again, to breathe and think and feel without worrying about what anyone else needed from me. It was a strange feeling one I hadn't had in a long time. As the weeks passed, the apartment began to feel less like a refuge and more like a home. I started to invite friends over, people I hadn't seen in years, people who reminded me of who I used to be before I became the caregiver, before I became the one who gave everything and received nothing in return. I laughed again, I smiled again, and slowly I began to understand what it meant to be needed by myself, not by anyone else. And even though the bitter taste of abandonment never fully left, something else began to take its place, a quiet sense of pride in what I had accomplished. I wasn't invisible anymore. I had rebuilt myself. And this time, it wasn't because I had to. It was because I wanted to. It was because I remembered who I was. This was my fresh start. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was mine. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. The first few nights in my new apartment were quiet, almost too quiet. I had grown used to the noise, the chaos, the demands of a household that needed me in every way. But now in the stillness of this small space, I realized something I had never truly noticed before. I had been living in a constant state of autopilot, moving from one task to the next, from one responsibility to the next, always giving, always doing for others. It wasn't just the chores, the laundry, the meals. It was me. I had been giving of myself, every ounce of my energy, my time, my love, and I had been doing it for so long without ever stopping to ask if I was getting anything in return. Here in my new apartment, I was finally able to hear the silence, and in that silence, I could hear myself. It was strange at first. The quiet was almost too much, too overwhelming. But as the days went by, I began to feel something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I didn't have to worry about anyone else's needs, no one else's expectations. I could wake up in the morning and do what I wanted without asking for permission, without sacrificing a part of myself in the process. I spent the first few weeks adjusting to this new rhythm. There was something liberating about being on my own, even though it wasn't the life I had imagined for myself. The apartment was modest, but it was mine. I decorated the walls with pictures of my own things that reminded me of who I was before I became lost in the role of caregiver. I hung up a quilt that Eli had made, its faded threads still holding the memories of his hands, his warmth. I placed a few of my favorite books on the shelves and filled the small kitchen with the scents of meals I made just for myself. And yet, even in the midst of this newfound peace, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still tethered to the family I had left behind. I had hoped that moving out would be a clean break, that it would allow me to finally heal, to rediscover myself. But Sarah's calls came, and with each one, the knot in my chest grew tighter. She started calling a few days after I moved in, each call a little more desperate than the last. At first I didn't pick up. I wasn't ready to hear her voice. But eventually I did. I let the phone ring, hesitated, and then answered, unsure of what I would hear. Mom Sarah's voice came through strained and almost apologetic. "I don't know what happened. I didn't think it would be like this. I miss you." The words hung in the air between us, filled with guilt, filled with something I couldn't quite place. She missed me, but there was no undoing what had been done. There was no way to go back and erase the coldness, the months of distance, the growing resentment that had built up between us. No amount of calling, no amount of "I miss you" could erase the damage. She didn't understand it, not fully. "I know, Sarah," I said quietly. My voice wasn't angry. It wasn't full of rage or bitterness. It was calm, almost distant, but not in a way that felt cold. "I miss you too, but things can't go back to the way they were. They just can't." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could almost hear her trying to understand, trying to grasp what I was saying, but there was nothing more to say. I didn't need her to understand. I needed to live my life, to stop living for others, to stop being the one who was always giving and never receiving. I could feel the tension, the silent space between us growing. She didn't know how to fix it, and neither did I. And in that moment, I realized that fixing things wasn't my job anymore. It never had been. I had spent so many years trying to patch up the cracks in our family, trying to hold everything together. But the truth was, I had forgotten about the cracks in myself. I had been so focused on making sure everyone else was okay that I had forgotten how to make sure I was okay. The call ended quietly without any resolution. Sarah didn't say anything else. I didn't offer any empty reassurances. We both knew what had happened. It wasn't something that could be fixed with a phone call or even 1,000 apologies. It was done. The damage had been done long before I left. I sat in the quiet of my apartment that evening, the phone still in my hand, the weight of the conversation sinking in. For a long time, I had allowed my worth to be defined by my ability to give, to care, to be needed. But that wasn't who I was. That wasn't all I had to offer. And it wasn't enough anymore. Not for me, not for anyone. That night, I did something I had never done before. I sat down and wrote a letter to Sarah. I knew that there would be no easy way to explain everything I had been feeling, but I needed her to understand. I needed to say it, to get it out, to give myself the closure I hadn't realized I needed. I wrote about the years of sacrifice, both emotional and financial. I told her how much I had given and how little I had received in return. I didn't blame her, but I made it clear that the toll had been heavy. I wrote about the strain it had put on me, not just financially, but emotionally. How I had stopped being a person and had become nothing more than a role, a caretaker, a helper, a fixer. But I was done being that for her. I was done being that for anyone. I wrote about how in the silence of my new life, I had finally found myself again. I had found my self-respect, my dignity, and my worth, not because of what I had done for others, but because of who I was. I was more than a caregiver. I was more than a mother, more than a grandmother, more than a person who gave until she had nothing left to give. I ended the letter simply, but with conviction. I hope you understand, Sarah. I hope you understand that this isn't about anger or bitterness. This is about me, about finally remembering who I am. I gave everything I could, but now it's time to give to myself. I folded the letter carefully, slipped it into an envelope, and addressed it to Sarah. It wasn't the kind of farewell that came with resentment. It wasn't filled with anger or hurt. It was a farewell born of clarity, born of self-respect. I sent the letter the next morning, and as I dropped it into the mailbox, I felt something lift off my chest, something I hadn't even realized was there. A burden, a weight, something that had been dragging me down for so long had finally been released. That afternoon, the phone rang again. I didn't pick it up. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the need to answer. I had already said everything I needed to say, and now I was finally free to live for myself. In the quiet of my small apartment, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The weight of years of giving, of sacrificing, of being needed finally felt like it was lifting. I was no longer the invisible woman who gave without receiving. I was me again. And that, for the first time in a long time, felt like enough. As I sat in my modest new apartment, the quiet of the space around me was almost overwhelming. It had been a few weeks since I'd moved out, since I'd left the house I had once helped build, and yet here I was, surrounded by the silence I had longed for. The stillness didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt like freedom. I had spent so many years running on autopilot, constantly giving of myself, without ever stopping to think about what I truly needed. I had poured everything I had into that house, into my family, believing that being needed was the most important thing. But in this silence, I found something I hadn't even realized I was missing: myself. It wasn't the apartment that brought me this peace. It wasn't the small space or the quiet nights. It was the realization that I didn't have to give endlessly anymore. I didn't have to sacrifice my own well-being to make others comfortable. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't someone else's caretaker, someone else's fixer. I was simply me, and that was enough. The weight of the years I had spent serving, giving, supporting it wasn't gone completely, but it no longer held me down. It had been replaced by something lighter, something more freeing: quiet autonomy. The freedom to live my life on my own terms. The freedom to make my own choices, to fill my days with things that brought me joy instead of obligation. Though I had lost the home I helped build, I had regained something far more precious. I had found my dignity again, the dignity I had given away piece by piece over the years. I had found my sense of belonging, but this time it wasn't tied to a house or to anyone else's expectations. It was my own. I had lost so much: the home, the family dynamics, the role I had played. But in return, I had gained something far more lasting: my life back. A life that was truly mine, to live free from the constant need to please, to serve, to give, until there was nothing left for me. In the end, the greatest gift I had given myself wasn't the apartment or the quiet. It was the freedom to be who I truly was, without apology. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly at home. The story of Jane's journey is one that resonates deeply with me, and I believe it speaks to many of us, especially women who often find our worth measured by what we give rather than who we are. For years, Jane gave, and gave without receiving. She poured herself into her family, sacrificing her own well-being, believing that her value came from being needed, from being the one who fixes everything. It's a narrative we hear far too often in society, where caregiving, selflessness, and sacrifice are worn like badges of honor, but at what cost? The truth is, we cannot pour from an empty cup. The idea that love is synonymous with sacrifice is a myth that needs to be challenged. Giving is beautiful when it's done from a place of balance and self-respect. But when we lose ourselves in the process, when we forget our own needs, desires, and dreams, that's when we start to wither. Jane's story is a powerful reminder that we deserve to be seen, to be valued, not just for what we do for others, but for who we are. As Jane found peace and autonomy in her new apartment, she rediscovered the essence of who she was: a woman with her own worth, her own voice, her own space. We all have the right to that. It's time we stop measuring our worth by the roles we play for others. It's time we start investing in ourselves, in our own happiness and growth. So I ask you, are you living for yourself, or are you living for someone else's expectations? Don't wait until you're lost to realize how much you matter. Share your thoughts with me. Let's start a conversation about finding balance and reclaiming our worth. Let's stop sacrificing ourselves for a love that doesn't recognize us. You deserve better.